You are standing before an insurmountable wall. All you see ahead of you is a massive obstacle, impossible to overcome. There is no way out, no strength great enough to bring it down, and all the odds are stacked against you. What would you do? Joshua faced this exact situation. He was about to lead his people into the promised land, but there was a problem. Jericho, a city with walls so high and impenetrable that any human attempt at conquest would be useless. From a human perspective, it was impossible. But what happened next was something no one could have ever imagined. And here's the big question. How did Joshua achieve this extraordinary victory? He had no powerful weapons, no army stronger than his enemies. But he had something that would completely change the course of history. And that same principle can transform your life today. If you've ever faced challenges that seemed impossible, moments when everything felt like it was working against you, then stay with me until the end, because today I'm going to reveal the 4 steps that Joshua followed to overcome seemingly insurmountable barriers, and how you can apply these same principles to reach your goals, no matter how big the obstacle. But before we begin, don't forget to like this video. This helps us spread this message and reach more people who need this word of faith and transformation. Now, get ready, because what's coming next might change the way you see challenges forever. Have you ever noticed that throughout the Bible, the great heroes of faith didn't just believe? They took action. Moses stretched out his staff before the Red Sea parted. David didn't wait for Goliath to fall on his own. He threw the stone. And Joshua? He followed a plan so unexpected and strategic that it forever changed the history of Israel. And here's where things get even more interesting. Joshua didn't just trust in God's promise. He applied spiritual and practical principles that, even today, can transform the way we face our challenges. He didn't wait for the solution to fall from the sky. He followed specific steps that led him to victory. Now, stop for a moment and think about your own life. How many times have you tried to achieve a goal, only to feel like something invisible was blocking your way? You might even have faith, you might even believe it's possible. But are you taking the right actions? Could there be a spiritual secret that can unlock your path and help you break through seemingly impossible barriers? What God revealed to Joshua is much more than a simple war strategy. It is a powerful principle that can still be applied today by anyone who wants to achieve great victories, whether in your career, relationships, or your boldest dreams. And here's the best part. At the end of this video, I'm going to share a little-known principle about how Joshua used the law of attraction in practice to conquer Jericho. Something that could completely change the way you face challenges and shape your reality. So stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal could be the key to unlocking the doors that have been shut in your life. Joshua was a warrior, trained for battle, but his greatest weapon was not the sword, nor brute strength. It was his faith and unwavering mindset. He wasn't just a military leader. He was a man chosen by God to lead his people toward the promise made to Abraham centuries earlier. But there was a massive problem standing in his way. Jericho. Picture the scene. An entire nation, exhausted from their journey through the desert, now standing before a fortified city with walls so high and thick that they seemed indestructible. No military force of that time could break through those barriers. The iron gates were locked, archers stood guard from above, and inside the city, enemy soldiers were ready to defend their territory at any cost. From a human perspective, winning that battle was impossible. And here's an important detail. Joshua had no conventional plan. He didn't have superior weapons, nor a larger army. He had no catapults, no siege strategies, no logical military approach to invade the city. But he had something no other leader had, the voice of God giving him a strategy. And that strategy made absolutely no sense to human reasoning. Now stop and think. How many times in your life have you faced an insurmountable wall? An obstacle that seemed to have no solution? A dream that felt out of reach? A door that never opens, no matter how hard you try? Maybe you've done everything in your power to change your situation. You've tried using your strength, the right connections, your own strategies, but nothing worked. Joshua could have given up. He could have looked at the walls of Jericho and thought, "This is too big for me." But instead, he did something that completely defied logic. He followed an approach that seemed absurd but contained a powerful secret. A secret that you can use today. Now pay attention. What God told Joshua to do was not a direct attack. It wasn't a typical war plan. It was something so unexpected, so unconventional, that any other leader would have dismissed it. But Joshua obeyed. And it was this obedience that completely changed the destiny of Israel. And here's the big question. Are you willing to follow a path that may seem strange in order to reach your victory? Because what happened next was something no one could have ever imagined. And that same strategy could be the missing key for you to conquer what you've been longing for. Now, take a moment and reflect. How many times have you felt stuck in front of an obstacle that seemed impossible to overcome? A challenge that felt too big, unreachable, completely beyond your control? Maybe it's a dream that never came true. Maybe it's an opportunity that always slips through your fingers. Maybe it's a cycle that keeps repeating itself. You try again, yet you never seem to move forward. And then comes that voice in your head saying, "It's impossible. You should just give up." But is the real enemy outside of you or inside? Joshua could have thought that way. He could have looked at Jericho and said, "This is too big for me. I don't have enough strength. I don't have the resources. There's no way I can win." But instead, he made a different decision. He chose to believe. He chose to take action. He chose to follow a specific process, one that led him to victory. And now, I want to challenge you. What is your Jericho? What is that barrier standing in front of you right now, keeping you from moving forward? What has been making you believe that you can't win? Because in the next few minutes, you're going to discover exactly how Joshua brought down the walls that seemed impossible to defeat, and how you can apply that very same principle to transform your life. So, pay close attention, because what comes next might be exactly what you need to change your story. Joshua's victory was not a matter of chance. It followed a strategic process, guided by God, but it also contained powerful principles that can be applied to any challenge in life. And now, you're going to discover the 4 steps that Joshua followed to turn the impossible into reality. Steps that you can use to overcome your own obstacles. The first step is visualizing victory before it happens. When Joshua stood before the towering walls of Jericho, God told him, "I have given Jericho into your hands." Joshua 6 verse 2. Pay attention to this. Before Joshua even marched, before the first action was taken, God had already declared victory. This is one of the most powerful keys to manifesting success in your life. Seeing the victory before it happens. If you look at your challenge and only see defeat, how will you ever overcome it? But if you see the solution before it even unfolds, your mind and actions will begin working to make it a reality. The second step is obedience and persistence. God gave Joshua a very specific strategy. March around the city for 7 days. For a military leader, this made no sense. There was no logical attack, no direct assault. But Joshua did not question, he obeyed. Many times, you may be waiting for a big opportunity, a clear sign, a drastic change, but God has already given you a process to follow. Have you been persistent in what God has placed in your heart, even when you don't see immediate results? Joshua didn't give up on the 2nd day, or the 3rd, or the 4th. He followed through to the very end, even when nothing seemed to be happening. The 3rd step is the power of silence and expectation. For 6 days, God commanded the people to march without saying a single word. And this has a deep meaning. Many times, what destroys our dreams is not the lack of action, but the words of doubt and negativity we repeat every day. Imagine if the Israelites had spent those 6 days complaining. This doesn't make sense. Nothing is happening. Why are we even doing this? The miracle could have been compromised. Your own words might be building your victory or tearing it down before it even begins. Learn from Joshua. Stay focused, stop feeding thoughts of failure, and keep your expectations set on victory. And the 4th step is the explosion of faith, the victory shout. On the 7th day, After circling Jericho for the final time, the people shouted with all their strength, and the walls came crashing down. This is the final secret. When you combine faith, action, and persistence, the impossible happens. Joshua and his people did not shout out of doubt. They didn't shout out of desperation. They shouted in celebration before the miracle had even manifested. Now, think about your own life. Are you waiting to see the walls fall before you celebrate the victory? Or are you shouting in faith, declaring that your victory has already arrived? Maybe your problem isn't the obstacle itself, but the lack of conviction that you've already won. Joshua didn't need to understand everything, didn't need to see the results before believing. He simply followed the process and trusted in the promise. And that's the big question. Are you willing to follow these 4 steps? Because if you apply these same principles, you can see the walls around you fall, one by one, just like they did in Jericho. The walls of Jericho did not fall just because of the people's shout. They didn't collapse simply because of sound or the strength of the Israelites. What happened there was much bigger, much deeper. Joshua followed a powerful spiritual principle, something that many people fail to recognize. God had already promised the victory, but Joshua had to visualize it, take action, and trust the process. He had to see the walls falling before they actually collapsed. This brings us to something that Jesus taught centuries later. Whatever you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive. Matthew 21, verse 22. This is the secret of spiritual manifestation. It is not enough to simply want something, and it is not enough to just ask. You must believe. You must act as if the victory is already yours. You must completely align yourself with the promise. Now, think about this. How many times have you prayed for something, but deep down, doubted that it could really happen? How many times have you wished for a change, but your mind was still trapped in the old reality, unable to believe that it was possible? Joshua did not just obey God. He aligned his mind, his heart, and his actions with the promise of victory. He did not see the walls fall on the first day, but he kept marching as if they had already collapsed. And that is the secret to transforming any reality. If you want to understand even more about how faith, action, and spiritual manifestation can change your life, there are other videos on this channel exploring biblical stories with surprising secrets. Don't stop here. Your journey of learning and spiritual growth is just beginning. The story of Joshua teaches us something powerful. No matter how big the obstacle, if you have faith, strategy, and persistence, victory is inevitable. He didn't win just because he believed. He won because he visualized the victory before it happened, followed the process even without fully understanding it, kept his mindset strong despite the difficulties, and at the right moment, acted with all his strength. And now, think about yourself. Which of these 4 steps do you need to apply most in your life today? Do you need to visualize your goal more clearly? Do you need to persist in the process, even when it seems like nothing is happening? Or maybe you need to strengthen your mind and stop feeding negative thoughts. Leave a comment down below. I want to know what your Jericho is and how you plan to bring down those walls in your life. If this video spoke to you, like and share this message so that more people can learn how to overcome their challenges through faith and action. And of course, subscribe to the channel right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming lessons. Every week, we bring new biblical stories that will inspire you and show you how to apply these principles in your daily life. And if you like this story, don't stop here. There is another biblical figure who faced impossible challenges and overcame them in a surprising way. Click on the next video now and discover another powerful lesson that can transform your life.